You know what? I've always hated the word pathophysiology because I don't know, it sounded awful and it never made sense until I actually started thinking this way. You can call it the missing link in medical school, actually. I would always think that pathophysiology means memorizing huge paragraphs, but it doesn't actually. I later realized that it is simply answering one question over and over again. That question is, what happened next? Then what happened? Then what happened? Then what happened? That's it. So I would actually want to rename the pathophysiology as, for example, the arrows. Like, whenever you study, just ask yourself, this happened. Then put an arrow beside it and just ask, why did it cause the next thing? And then another arrow. It is all about explaining the arrows. For example, the patient lost blood. Now ask one question, then what happened? The answer is, the blood volume became less. Now ask again, then what happened? Not enough blood reached to the organs. Ask again, then what happened? Blood pressure became low. Then ask again, then what happened? The patient went into shock. That's it. You don't need cause, mechanism, or effect. Just ask one question, then what happened, several times. Another example I could give you is that, for example, the protein leaked into urine. You ask, then what happened? Protein is albumin, so albumin became low. So then what happened? Because of low albumin, water left the blood vessels. Because albumin is the one that actually attracts or keeps the water inside. So then ask, what happened? The body became swollen. Done. The third example is streptococcal throat infection. Ask, then what happened? The immune system reacted because of the infection. Then what happened? The kidneys became inflamed. Then what happened? Blood appeared in urine. Then what happened? The child developed nephrotic syndrome. So our biggest problem is that our brain thinks or likes to think in events, but medicine is taught in relationships. They're not the same thing. For example, you naturally think the patient was bleeding and then blood pressure became low and then shock happened. This is actually event. But examiners are listening for relationships. They want you to say blood loss, and then what happened? It caused reduced circulating blood volume. And then what happened? It causes hypotension. Then what happened? This causes reduced organ perfusion. Then what happened? Shock happened. Notice something, these events are the same. But the difference is that every arrow has a reason. Like, instead of, for example, in your mind, you just think, then what happened? But in the paper, you can just draw arrows and answer those arrows because each and every arrow has a reason. So the problem basically is not pathophysiology. The problem is that our brain has never been trained to think in arrows. Instead of A, arrow B, we always think A happens and then later B happens, which is wrong. Doctors think A happens and then there comes an arrow, there you will just answer because and then B happens. So the arrow is the most important part. A question to you.